A new analysis shows that the 6-ton iconic altar stone at the heart of Stonehenge originated from northeastern Scotland rather than southwest Wales.
Remember that moment when you kept staring at a blurry image until your eyes finally adjusted, and suddenly a hidden picture appeared? Now imagine humanity doing that for 1,000 years with Stonehenge, carefully measuring every massive grey slab, convinced we had already uncovered its entire story. But when we finally handed it over to AI, it didn't focus on the stones themselves. It analyzed the spaces between them, revealing a hidden pattern that had been sitting in plain sight all along. And what it uncovered is something no one ever expected. Digital excavation. For decades, archaeology relied on physical work, boots on the ground, careful digging, and brushes sweeping away dirt to uncover the past. At a place like Stonehenge, this approach had limits. Dig too much, and you risk damaging the very history you're trying to preserve. Dig too little, and you uncover nothing new. Eventually, researchers reached a point where every visible surface had been studied, every stone measured, and every theory recycled. The narrative stalled, stuck on familiar ideas about solstices and ancient rituals simply because there was no new data left to explore. Human observation had hit its ceiling. Then came the digital shift. Instead of digging deeper into the soil, scientists began looking beneath it using advanced tools like magnetometry and ground-penetrating radar, technologies that act like X-rays for the Earth. These methods produced enormous volumes of data, far more than any human could realistically process. It was like searching for a single grain of sand in an endless desert. That's where AI stepped in, not to replace archaeologists, but to help them make sense of the overwhelming noise. Unlike humans, AI carries no assumptions or expectations. Archaeologists often interpret what they see through centuries of existing theories and cultural narratives, which can unintentionally filter out details that don't fit. AI, however, sees only patterns, anomalies, and probabilities. It examines the landscape without bias, treating it like a complex puzzle waiting to be solved. By digitally stripping away layers of grass, soil, and modern interference, AI can reconstruct how the land may have looked thousands of years ago. As it processed the data, the system began detecting subtle, repeating patterns in the soil, signals too faint and too precise for human observers to notice. These weren't random natural formations. They suggested deliberate human activity hidden beneath the surface. What once looked like meaningless variations in the terrain started to form a clearer picture. This marked a major shift in how Stonehenge was studied. The focus moved from the stones themselves to the spaces around them. Areas that appeared ordinary to the human eye showed up as significant hotspots in the data, hinting at structures or features long buried and forgotten. It was as if a fog had been lifted, revealing an entirely new layer of the landscape. Suddenly, Stonehenge was no longer just a circle of stones. It became part of a much larger, interconnected system embedded in the ground itself. And for the first time in centuries, we weren't just looking at what's visible, we were beginning to understand what lies hidden beneath it. The invisible blueprint. When artificial intelligence began analyzing the underground scans of the Salisbury Plain, it didn't interpret the data as a simple map. It recognized it as a structured system of patterns, almost like a hidden code embedded in the landscape. For centuries, human attention had been fixed on the visible Stonehenge circle, the towering stones, their alignments, and their connection to celestial events. Every detail had been measured and documented, leaving little room for new discoveries. But AI approached the site differently. Instead of focusing on what could be seen, it analyzed what was missing, the spaces between the known features, and that's where the real breakthrough began. The system was fed high-resolution magnetometry data, a technique that detects subtle variations in the Earth's magnetic field caused by disturbances in the soil. These disturbances often come from ancient human activity, like digging pits or placing structures that were later buried. To human researchers, this data can look like random interference or visual noise, offering little immediate clarity. But to AI, those irregularities began to form recognizable patterns. What once appeared chaotic slowly resolved into precise geometric shapes, circles, lines, and repeating intervals that suggested deliberate design. As the analysis deepened, the AI identified a vast outer ring of buried features just beneath the surface. This hidden structure surrounded the familiar stone circle and appeared to be made up of evenly spaced pits and remnants of timber posts. The precision of their placement indicated careful planning, pointing to a level of engineering that challenges long-held assumptions about the capabilities of Stonehenge's builders. Rather than a simple monument, the site began to reveal itself as part of a much larger, coordinated layout. What made the discovery even more compelling was how these hidden elements interacted with natural light. By running simulations of the sun's movement across the landscape thousands of years ago, the AI found that the buried features were not randomly positioned. Instead, they appeared to influence how sunlight and shadows moved through the site during key times of the year. Shadows cast by these structures would have formed deliberate pathways, guiding attention toward the center of Stonehenge. This suggests that the monument was not only a static structure, but part of a dynamic visual experience tied closely to the movement of the sun. The analysis also revealed consistent spacing patterns between the buried features, hinting at the use of a standardized system of measurement. When compared with other Neolithic sites in the region, similar ratios and layouts began to emerge. This points to the possibility that ancient builders shared a common design framework or blueprint across different locations. Such consistency implies a level of communication and planning that extends beyond isolated construction efforts, suggesting a broader cultural or technological network. Another surprising insight came from how the layout may have influenced sound. By modeling how audio waves would travel through the arrangement of stones and buried structures, the AI indicated that the site could have been designed to control acoustics. The stone circle may have dampened external noise while amplifying sounds within, such as voices or rhythmic drumming. Meanwhile, the outer features may have reflected and redirected sound back toward the center. Creating an immersive auditory environment. Taken together, these findings transform the way Stonehenge is understood. Instead of a standalone structure, it appears to be part of a much larger, carefully engineered system, one that integrates geometry, light, and sound into a unified design. Rather than revealing a new object, AI has uncovered a new level of complexity, suggesting that the people who built Stonehenge possessed a far deeper understanding of their environment than previously believed. The hidden settlement. For centuries, Stonehenge was imagined as a lone monument, an isolated circle of stones rising from an empty landscape, visited briefly by ancient people before they vanished back into the wild. It painted a mysterious, almost poetic picture, but new AI analysis has completely overturned that idea. When advanced algorithms examined LiDAR data covering miles around the site, they didn't see emptiness. They revealed a vast, hidden network of human activity. Stonehenge, it turns out, wasn't standing alone. It was the central hub of a large, thriving prehistoric community. Using digital modeling, the AI effectively peeled away the modern world, removing roads, fences, and buildings to focus on the subtle contours of the land itself. What it uncovered was a dense web of features, thousands of small depressions, post holes, pathways, and structural traces that had long been dismissed as natural irregularities. But seen together, these patterns told a different story. They formed the layout of a settlement, clusters of homes, temporary shelters, and organized spaces that suggest people didn't just visit Stonehenge. They lived around it, worked around it, and built their daily lives in its shadow. The site shifts from being a quiet ritual space to something far more dynamic, a crowded, active center of culture and construction. One of the most significant discoveries was the clearer connection to Durrington Walls, a nearby prehistoric site. While archaeologists already knew the two were linked, AI mapping revealed a far more structured relationship between them. A defined pathway connected the two locations, with areas along the route showing signs of heavy use. These weren't random footpaths. They appeared to be carefully planned routes, possibly used during large gatherings or ceremonial events. The layout suggests that movement through the landscape was intentional, guiding people toward Stonehenge in a controlled and meaningful way. This level of organization points to early forms of planning that rival what we associate with much later civilizations. The AI also identified areas that appear to have been used for specific purposes. Certain clusters of pits showed chemical traces linked to food preparation, indicating large-scale cooking zones capable of feeding large groups of people. Other areas suggested spaces where materials were worked, possibly for shaping stones before they were moved into place. Instead of a single construction site, the landscape functioned as a coordinated system, complete with living areas, work zones, and supply networks. Another key insight came from analyzing how the site changed over time. Evidence suggests that the population around Stonehenge wasn't constant. Instead, it likely expanded during certain seasons, drawing in large numbers of people, then shrinking again afterward. The positioning of structures hints that activity may have peaked during colder months, with shelters designed to capture sunlight. This suggests a society capable of organizing large groups of people on a seasonal basis, bringing them together, sustaining them, and directing their efforts toward a shared purpose. What this discovery reveals is that Stonehenge was never meant to stand alone. It was part of a much larger living environment, a carefully organized landscape filled with movement, purpose, and coordination. Rather than uncovering a single hidden object, AI exposed the scale of human effort behind the monument. The surrounding land wasn't empty. It was a structured, functioning community. By revealing this hidden suburb, we begin to understand how such an enormous project was possible. Moving and placing massive stones would have required not just strength, but planning, resources, and a large, organized population. The true discovery isn't just the monument itself, it's the entire system that made it possible. The hidden marks of the builders. Once AI mapped out where everything was, it turned to a deeper question. Who actually built Stonehenge? For centuries, the builders were imagined as a single, faceless group of laborers, strong, determined, but largely anonymous. That view began to change when researchers fed ultra-detailed images of the stones into advanced pattern recognition systems. Instead of treating the stones as massive structures, the AI focused on the smallest details, the tiny marks left behind by the tools that shaped them. These weren't just random dents. They were traces of human action, subtle signatures left by individuals who lived thousands of years ago. By analyzing thousands of high-resolution 3D scans, the AI studied the patterns of impact marks carved into the sarsen stones. To the human eye, these marks appear chaotic and uneven, but the AI detected consistency within the chaos. It identified distinct styles of hammering, differences in force, rhythm, and technique. Some strikes were heavy and direct, while others were more controlled and methodical. These patterns weren't random. They pointed to different groups of workers, each with their own approach. In effect, the AI revealed that the monument was not built by a single unorganized workforce, but by specialized teams, each leaving behind a recognizable signature in the stone. This discovery challenges the long-standing idea of primitive construction. The AI found evidence that the stones were carefully engineered, not roughly shaped. Subtle design features, such as slight curves in the vertical stones, suggested that the builders understood how structures would appear from a distance. These adjustments would make the stones look more symmetrical and visually balanced to the human eye. It shows that the builders weren't just focused on function, they cared about appearance, precision, and the overall visual impact of the monument. The AI also revisited the mystery of the smaller blue stones, which were transported from Wales over long distances. By analyzing their chemical composition, the system identified that these stones came from multiple specific locations, not just a single quarry. Even more intriguing, some of these stones appeared to have been used in earlier structures before being relocated. This suggests that the builders may have intentionally reused materials with cultural or symbolic meaning, carrying elements of their past into the construction of Stonehenge. Beyond the stones themselves, the AI uncovered insights into how the entire project was organized. By estimating the physical effort required to move and shape the stones, it calculated the scale of resources needed to support the workforce. When this was compared with evidence of food production and activity zones nearby, a clearer picture emerged. This was a highly coordinated effort. It likely involved not just workers, but planners, organizers, and individuals responsible for managing resources. Even without written records, the society demonstrated a strong sense of structure and planning. These findings transform how we see Stonehenge. Instead of a mysterious relic built by unknown hands, it becomes a carefully executed project, shaped by skilled individuals and organized communities. The builders were not just laborers, they were craftsmen, planners, and creators who left behind more than a monument. They left behind evidence of their skill, their systems, and their identity. The solar simulation. For generations, Stonehenge has been described in the simplest terms: a monument aligned with the sun. Most people picture the iconic moment during the summer solstice, when sunlight rises over the heel stone and reaches the center of the circle. It's striking, but according to AI-driven analysis, that moment is only a small piece of a far more complex system. By feeding thousands of years of astronomical data into advanced simulation models, researchers were able to recreate how the sky moved above Stonehenge across millennia. What emerged was not just a calendar, but a dynamic system designed to interact with both sunlight and moonlight in ways far more intricate than previously imagined. One of the first things the AI accounted for was the gradual shift in Earth's axial tilt over time. This subtle movement means the position of the sun and moon in the sky today is not exactly the same as it was thousands of years ago. After recalibrating the sky to match the Neolithic period, the system began identifying alignments that occur so rarely they had gone unnoticed. Among these was a connection to a rare lunar event known as the Major Lunar Standstill, when the moon reaches extreme positions in the sky. During this event, the arrangement of stones appears to interact with moonlight in a precise way, creating shifting patterns of light and shadow that would have been visible only under specific conditions. This suggests that Stonehenge was not only tracking the sun, but also long-term cycles of the moon. The analysis went further by examining how the surfaces of the stones themselves interact with light. Rather than being randomly shaped, the textures of the stones appear to influence how light reflects across them. At certain times of day, especially during low-angle sunlight, the uneven surfaces can create moving highlights that travel across the stone faces. These subtle effects would change the visual appearance of the monument throughout the day, giving it a shifting, almost animated quality depending on the position of the sun. The AI also identified specific sightlines within the structure. Certain arrangements of stones form narrow visual corridors that align with the sun at particular times of the year. From carefully positioned vantage points, the sunlight appears to pass directly through these openings, creating focused beams of light that interact with the ground and surrounding space. This suggests that the monument may have been designed not only for observation, but also to create intentional visual experiences tied to specific moments in time. Even environmental conditions seem to have been considered. By modeling variations in weather, including cloud cover and atmospheric conditions, the system showed that the monument's design could still produce visible light and shadow effects, even in less than ideal conditions. This indicates a level of planning that accounted for unpredictability, ensuring that key visual alignments remained noticeable. Altogether, these findings reshape how Stonehenge is understood. Rather than a static structure used simply to mark time, it appears to be a carefully designed environment that interacts with light, shadow, and celestial movement. The people who built it were not just observers of the sky, they created a space that responded to it, transforming natural cycles into a structured and meaningful experience. Why the machine sees what we miss. When we examine what AI has revealed about Stonehenge, a bigger question emerges. Why did it take a machine to uncover patterns humans missed for thousands of years? The answer lies in perspective. Humans tend to see objects as separate pieces, a stone here, a shadow there, each analyzed on its own. AI, however, sees connections. It links distant features, recognizes relationships, and interprets everything as part of a larger system. Instead of focusing on individual elements, it processes the entire landscape as one interconnected design. In that sense, Stonehenge is something AI naturally understands. It's not just a structure, but a system built to interact with its surroundings. What AI uncovered goes beyond hidden features. It revealed a hidden mindset. The builders weren't simply placing stones, they were organizing knowledge. Their work reflects a kind of structured thinking that resembles modern computational logic. Certain alignments appear to trigger specific outcomes, suggesting a form of conditional reasoning built directly into the landscape. This means Stonehenge may have functioned as a physical way of storing and communicating information. To AI, this isn't surprising. It operates on similar principles of patterns, relationships, and logical systems. This shifts how we view ancient intelligence. We often assume that complexity developed gradually over time, but discoveries like this suggest that sophisticated thinking has always existed. It was just expressed differently. Without written language or digital tools, ancient builders encoded their understanding into the land itself. Geometry, astronomy, and engineering were not separate fields. They worked together as a unified system. In many ways, Stonehenge can be seen as an early form of data storage, where information was preserved through structure and alignment rather than text. AI's role in all of this is not just to analyze, but to interpret. By processing vast amounts of data at once, it can reveal connections that would take humans generations to notice. It acts like a recovery tool, bringing hidden patterns to the surface. What once seemed random now appears intentional, part of a carefully designed system. Perhaps most striking is the level of effort behind the monument. The precision and detail go far beyond what was necessary for simple functionality. This suggests that the builders were driven not just by need, but by a desire for accuracy, balance, and meaning. Stonehenge was not just built to work, it was built to resonate. Looking forward, this approach opens new possibilities. If AI can uncover hidden systems in a site studied for centuries, similar discoveries may exist across the world. Beneath familiar landscapes, there may be patterns we have yet to see. As technology advances, we are beginning to view the Earth in a new way, less as a surface and more as a layered record of human activity waiting to be understood. Ultimately, AI doesn't just help us uncover the past, it helps us rethink it. Stonehenge is no longer just an ancient monument. It becomes evidence of a sophisticated way of thinking that still feels surprisingly familiar today. The stones are still talking, and for the first time in history, we finally have a way to listen. Comment your thoughts below and subscribe to the channel for more.